Hi, this is Mariah Gullo from The Hollywood Reporter, and this is Meet Your Emmy Nominee, and I have Billy Eichner with me.
Yes.
Yes, for
Hi.
Billy on the Street.
That's right.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Outstanding variety sketch series.
That's it.
And how does it feel to be nominated?
It feels great. It's really cool. It's exciting. We've been working on this show. This was our 5th season. Mm-hmm. We've had a couple of smaller nominations in the past, but this is like our first big category.
Yeah.
First time I'm in a category that's handed out during the big Emmy live telecast.
prime time.
So I've been to that before. I did a Billy on the Street bit with Seth Meyers when he
That's
hosted
right.
it a few years ago, but I've never been in a category that was handed out during the main ceremony, so that's cool. And all the kids who work with me on the show, a lot of us have been working on it together for 5 years, and they're all very excited, and I'm excited, and you know, it's my baby. I started doing Billy on the Street videos for my live show in New York before YouTube was even around, 2004.
Yeah.
You know, and this was a long time, and this is a nice little, you know, like cherry on the cake. Is that a saying? I don't know.
Pineapple upside down cake has cherries on it.
What you know what I was trying to
Good,
say?
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was...
Icing on the cake. Icing on the cake. Cherry on the what?
Cherry.
What?
Cherry
on top of the cake?
It's all good.
Take that,
It's all
Fred
dessert.
Armisen. Can't compete with this.
When I was in my 20s, I was a PA in New York, and we had to do street casting. So your show always just, like, immediately just makes me, like, die with laughter because I
thank
think
you.
about all of the work it takes.
Yeah, well, we don't
do
precast the people.
Yeah.
Ever. I literally go out, and that actually makes it... Anything you do on the street, if you ask
Right.
anyone in show business who's had to do what they call field segments, which is like anything you film on the street talking to real people, it's always very difficult. In our case, it's almost impossible because we're not finding people and then kind of having them stand there as if we didn't find them already. What you see on Billy on the Street is what you get. I'm going up to people for the first time. They have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't even know who I'm going to go up to because we move so fast. It's just like, oh, there's a person, there's a person, there's a person. I end up speaking to someone for 10 minutes. I end up speaking to someone for 10 seconds. I don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if they're going to like me or hate me. It's challenging, you know. It's unless you've done it, you don't know. It all looks kind of easy peasy. Oh, he went out and he shot for a couple of weeks, but we literally shoot for months. You know, it's crazy.
And it doesn't get any easier now that you're kind of a recognizable person, too, does
No,
it?
I mean, if anything, it gets a little harder because
Yeah.
I'm in this constant weeding out process of, I'm pretty good at being able to look at someone in the eye, and even if they're trying to pretend that they don't know me to get on the show, I'm like, it doesn't work like that. So, but I can tell if they know me, and so I kind of have to weed those people out, and that's kind of added another layer to the process. But of course, it's also, like I always say, at this point, if people didn't recognize me, I'd be like, who the hell's watching this thing? So I'm happy that someone's recognizing me because that means someone's watching the show. But
Yeah. So I can't really fact check this, but you might be one of the only people in your category who is like blatantly asking for an Emmy on your show, and even
I've
giving
asked
yourself
numerous
one.
times. I gave myself one. By the way, no one can tell. You know, I mean, you could show up to the Emmys carrying 7 Emmys, and they'll take a picture of you, and everyone will think you won 7 Emmys. I might do that, by the way. I mean, what do you think Tony Shalhoub was doing all those years? He didn't really win all of those. So, but yeah, no, yes, I have blatantly asked people. Well, for our 4th season, last season, there was some talk that we might get nominated. We ended up not getting nominated, and then I thought, all bets are off.
Yeah.
You know, we deserve to get nominated at this point. I'm just going to tell people that we deserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like it. I like your style.
Yes, thank you.
I think you were handed one by a trapeze artist, or
That came at the
That was
end.
so great.
There's a lot to unpack. That came at the end of an obstacle course we did about gun control
Yes.
laws in the United States with Keegan-Michael Key. And at the end of it, we had a human bullet gets shot out of a huge gun and goes flying way up in the air, and he lands in a net. And then I run after him, and I said, "Give me my Emmy." And I start shouting, "I did political comedy. Now I won an Emmy." Because if you do political comedy, that's just like, you're just given an Emmy nomination.
Right.
You know, but if you don't do political comedy, it's thought that, oh, well, it's not substantial enough or whatever. And so we now do some political comedy on the show, not to get nominated for an Emmy. It was to get nominated for an Emmy.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? Like, if you just do pop culture stuff, people are like, oh, that's silly. It doesn't, we're not going to, like, congratulate him for doing that.
Right.
But I find it interesting that if you start diving into political comedy, everyone takes you a lot more seriously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, did you notice a big reaction when you did the Eddie Murphy comments that had?
That's one of my favorite segments ever. I didn't think there was a big enough reaction to that. That was from the previous season, and I love that game. Mm-hmm. It's hilarious. We did a game called Eddie Murphy or Mark Twain. And I'm dressed as Mark Twain, and we have a contestant I found on the street, and I read off a list of quotes. Some are these very, like old chestnuts of, like, wisdom from Mark Twain, and some are incredibly homophobic, bigoted Eddie Murphy jokes from one of his original comedy specials back in the 80s, which he since apologized for, but they're still out there, and considered, like, iconic and classic. And I'm like, he was telling gay jokes during the AIDS crisis. But so I thought that juxtaposing these, like, sort of old-timey Mark Twain quotes with these very harsh Eddie Murphy jokes about gay people was really funny. And I'm dressed as Mark Twain. And that segment really captured this sort of silly, serious balance that we try to do, that we try to accomplish in what I think are the best segments on the show. Sometimes things are just silly, but I think the best segments ride this wave of silly and serious and absurd, but with a point of view and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like how, I mean, that it kind of, you see that evolve in season 5.
For sure, yeah.
Definitely more into it. Do you consider yourself a very political person?
I always did. And now with this current state of the world, you kind of have to be. And I kind of can't help it. You know, like, every day it's like 50 things to get angry about and furious about. And, I don't really know. I think, I honestly do think, you can be cynical about social media, and I think there are massive pros and massive cons to it, the way there are with everything ultimately. But I do think that Twitter, I made a joke on Billy on the Street, actually. I ran up to a woman and I said, Twitter is a force, right? I was just screaming at people that Twitter is a force. This is a few years ago. And I do, that was a joke, but also I do think Twitter is a force. And, if Trump and his ilk are going to use it for such, like, negativity, to put so much negativity out into the world, I think you have to counteract that. With a more positive message and a more progressive message, and that's what you do. How effective is it? It's better than not doing anything, I think. And so, and I find it kind of cathartic just on a personal level, and so I have become more political, as has everyone, I think.
Yeah, it felt like the people on the streets of New York also found it as cathartic. I'm thinking of the Stephen Colbert segment where you asked them to send Trump a message through Stephen Colbert.
Yeah.
And it really seemed like they really thought they were going to get that message through. Like, they were like, yes, finally somebody's listening. I get to say my piece.
Totally. And I love that segment. And that's actually a segment. We shot most of this most recent season before the election, because we shoot when it's warm out. By the time election day comes, it's too cold in New York. But we went back to New York after Trump got elected, right before the inauguration, with Stephen Colbert. He agreed to do the show, and shot a segment asking New Yorkers to deliver whatever message they wanted to Donald Trump. And I mean, even that seems now like it was 10 years ago. That was just January. We didn't even know what he was going to do. Like, that was before the inauguration, and people were already, riled up, and it's all very overwhelming. But yeah, I mean, it's really tough. If you're a New Yorker, you kind of pride yourself on living among a very diverse group of people, and immigrants and LGBT and people from every corner of the earth and every race and every, religion and sexual orientation, and atheists and Christians, and we're all a big mix, on the subways of New York City where I grew up, you're all together, whether you like it or not. It's just how it is. You take it, it's a given. You actually take it for granted. So I think if you are someone from a big city, especially New York, where we have the friggin' Statue of Liberty, I think it's very hard to deal with the message that we're getting now from Washington because it literally is the opposite of everything that we live with every day. So as a New Yorker, it's particularly hard to deal with it. You just get very angry.
Yeah. Actually, talking about Stephen Colbert, do you have any advice for him when he hosts the Emmys?
Oh, I think he's going to be great. I can't imagine a better fit this year. Like, I don't think it would have been, sometimes you have hosts that are less politically inclined, they're sort of sillier, and and that's great too, but how could we not have Colbert this year? Like, we need it. It would feel so far removed from reality to have someone who just decided they're not really going to talk about the political situation very much. That would feel very out of touch. So plus Stephen Colbert's like a song and dance man, on top of all of that. I don't know what he's planning to do, but he's brilliant. He's great. We both went to Northwestern, me and Stephen Colbert. He's older than me. I love him. Actually, when I was first trying to sell Billy on the Street as a show, you're trying to figure out how to define it for TV executives who are like, this is new and weird and it's funny, but we don't know how this fits into the landscape, et cetera, et cetera. I used to use the Colbert Report as a model, and I would say, you see what Stephen Colbert is doing for politics? He's using his real name, but he's clearly playing a persona, and there's a part of the audience that might think it's real, but a larger part of the audience that knows that it's a satire. And that, I used to say, like, Billy on the Street's the pop culture version of that. A much different format, obviously, but that was my model. Like, I wanted to be pop culture Colbert Report.
Yeah. In
my own weird way. So I love him. Yeah.
You said before that you enjoy being out in LA. Would you ever consider moving here?
I have moved here.
You did?
It happened.
You're here!
I'm here. Well, I'm shooting
amazing.
American Horror Story, so that shoots here.
So you had to...
I have actually... A little secret is that because Funny or Die, which produces Billy on the Street, is based here, we've always shot the show in New York, obviously, but I've edited all the episodes with my lovely editors, Bill and Chris, here in LA. Yeah. So I ended up being very bi-coastal, and with American Horror Story now, I'm here, at least for now. I'm sure I'll go back to New York, obviously.
Okay, one thing I noticed as somebody who lived in New York and LA is that people who have kind of more of a negative outlook or are a little angrier here are kind of shunned, and it's kind of the opposite in New York. If you're like overly positive, people think, what's wrong with you?
Right, totally.
Have you experienced that here? Like, has it been a difficult adjustment?
I will say I think there's been a massive migration of East Coasters to LA recently, and most of my friends here are not necessarily new friends I've made in LA. They're my old New York friends, and we now just all live here.
Right.
Straight, gay, everything in between. And so we kind of still act like New Yorkers.
You're in a New York bubble.
I'm in my New York bubble in an LA bubble. Could there be a more liberal bubble? I'm in a New York bubble in LA. I mean, you might as well be living in like a bathhouse or something like that. I don't even know. But so I haven't felt the need to, not be angry necessarily. Also because of politics, LA, like New York, we're in the most progressive state here in California. And so I think people are a little angrier and are a little bewildered and more willing to share that. One of the greatest moments ever was the Women's March in LA. Like, I'm sure it was great everywhere, but people in LA, the cliche is true, no one walks around. It's gorgeous weather and no one's ever walking around. Everyone's in their car. So to have 750,000 people in downtown LA on a Saturday or Sunday, I forget which day it was, walking around together, that was really powerful.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I love LA. I think LA gets a bad rap. I mean, I'm a New Yorker, but I really love LA. There's a lot to be said for it. It's beautiful. And, I'm a show business guy, and this is it. This is where it is.
Yeah, and this is a great place for you to, your acting career has really ramped up.
My God, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, how do I do it? No,
How has
yes.
it been doing that? Like, do you feel good kind of moving into the acting realm with Difficult People, Friends from College, American Horror Story?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's really what I started off doing. I was a theater major at Northwestern. I was a child actor in New York. I didn't do a ton. I never fully committed to it, like in a Neil Patrick Harris kind of way, but I was, and that's really what I wanted to be, and I kind of stumbled into comedy and Billy on the Street taking off. I won't say it's a fluke, because I put a lot of thought into my live comedy shows in New York, which is where Billy on the Street came out of, but it was not my initial intention. I wanted to do Broadway. You know, I grew up in New York and I just wanted to do theater. And so for me, American Horror Story, Difficult People, it's not something new. It's new to the world, seeing me like that, but for me, it's actually getting back to what I wanted to do. Yeah. And Difficult People's a blast, and, you know, very much inspired by Julie's life and my life and our friends in New York. American Horror Story, which I'm, like, you know, not allowed to talk about very much, but it has been a blast. I don't think I'm very lucky. I've gotten to do a ton of amazing things the past few years, but this is it's the most different thing that I've done, and it's the most fun I've ever had. Even though it's also by far the darkest thing, because it's so, you have no idea. It's so crazy. I don't know what people are going to think, but in terms of my own experience, like, and it's Sarah Paulson and Evan Peters and Billy Lord. I mean, it's Allison Pill. They're really great actors. And it's great, and Ryan Murphy and everyone in Ryan's team, it's just people working at, like, the top of their game. Yeah. Everyone working really hard, the designers, the specificity. I'm someone who really I've driven people, like my producers on Billy on the Street, crazy because of my attention to detail. Every prize is goes through various phases until I get to what I want it to be. The obstacle courses, there's a whole, process of how we get to build these massive obstacles. And so it might mean that we shoot for 19 million hours, but it's because everyone's trying to, get the perfect shot. And it's great. I really appreciate that.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Super Sloppy Double Dare with Keegan-Michael Key.
Super Sloppy Semi-Automatic Double Dare.
Yes.
It's wordy. It's a mouthful.
It is. So all your obstacle course people before have been small women like Rachel Dratch and
tiny women. The tiniest women I could find.
Yeah.
We put out a call for the shortest woman. And I love short women on a TV show. Yes, don't you?
Yes.
So enough of these tall freaks. Yeah.
But Keegan-Michael Key, he's very tall.
Very tall.
I just thought it was just hilarious awkwardness seeing him trying to squeeze through these little
tiny
rings
little
and throwing
obstacles.
His guns in front of him.
Yeah.
And was that a fun experience for you?
It was fun for me. I don't know if it was fun for him. I just had to stand there and scream at him. It was, that's a segment that ended up getting a lot, creating a lot of discussion around it, and people talked about it, and I think it caught people by surprise. We had done political things, but we had never done a political obstacle course on that level, and it was very blatant. Some of our more political things, like we played a game called Immigrant or Real American, the Eddie Murphy game, you kind of got to read between the lines.
Yeah.
This was you know what I'm talking about. It was an obstacle course inspired by Double Dare obstacle courses, which I loved as a kid, but all about, the idea was, let's do an obstacle course with a theme where there are very few obstacles. And gun control in this country, owning a gun, very few obstacles to own a gun in this country. And I thought, what a sad and absurdly, darkly funny subject for an obstacle course. And so we have Keegan-Michael Key from Key and Peele, obviously, and other things, friends from college, go through all of these obstacles. Each obstacle represents a different state, and he shows you how easy it is to get a gun without a license, without training. It's it's insane. It's completely insane, and I'm really glad that he did it. I went back and forth with my writers a long time. Can we do this? Should we do this? Are people going to think I'm making fun of gun control? Because the context of the show can be so silly sometimes, but ultimately I thought it's important to me. I'm on the creative council of Everytown for gun safety, great organization, and for me it's not, like Julianne Moore always says, it's not a political issue.
Yeah.
It's just a human safety issue. I don't even know. We're living in a crazy time. I'm really glad we did it. And I thought Keegan's presence alone brought a gravitas to it that it might not have otherwise had. So I was really grateful that he did it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So every season you have one sketch that I think kind of pushes the boundaries a little bit, or one segment. There was the year that you did the Chipmunks segment.
Yes.
But this year...
You really know your stuff. I'm impressed.
I do.
Yeah, you really know your stuff.
Show.
Yeah.
But this year it was Death Rogan. How did it feel to complete that segment?
Let me explain what that is for people who haven't seen it. Death Rogan is a segment where Seth Rogen, who's a buddy of mine, he did the show, and we disguised him as a cameraman who's following me around, because there are obviously camera guys that follow me around. So we didn't put him in a weird costume, but the camera hides his face and he's wearing a baseball cap. And I go up to people, he's standing behind me, and if you're not expecting to see Seth Rogen and he's behind the camera, he's very well hidden, so you don't know he's there. And I go up to people and I very earnestly, and in a very heartfelt way, reveal to them the news that the actor Seth Rogen had died in Hollywood that morning, in an effort to get their real reactions. Now, the inspiration for this was the fact that it sounds like very dark and like, oh, that's not right. But let me tell you why I did that. Because it's frustrating to me when a celebrity dies, and we were coming off a year of like major celebrity deaths, and everyone goes crazy, and all of a sudden they're a martyr. Everyone was a fan.
Right.
But we don't tell these people how we feel about them when they're alive. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, to a certain degree we do, but we also put them through hell.
Don't celebrities do get a lot of people going up to them and telling them?
They do, but if you look at, I don't know, but I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like when someone dies, all of a sudden everyone sort of creates this other version of that person, like there's some martyr or something,
That's
and
true.
and everyone comes out of the woodwork. Oh my God. Did I love so-and-so? He changed my life. And it's like, you've never mentioned him once. And so I thought, why don't we let a celebrity experience that kind of adoration they get when they die while they're still alive? I mean, I think funerals in general are very stupid. And so, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, whatever. I'm not anti-funeral. I don't want that pack to come after me. But I thought, let's do it with Seth Rogen. And then, of course, just the name Death Rogan made me laugh. And so, and we got a variety of responses. There were people who felt very bad. There were people who kind of didn't care. One older man, for some reason, his initial response was, oh, did he have AIDS? Seth Rogen? I mean, look, you don't know. But I actually really love that segment. I think it freaked Seth out a little bit. And his mom tweeted that she didn't like it. Which I felt bad about. But he's not dead. He's very much alive. He has a lot of projects in development. And I think Seth Rogen's going to be okay for a little while.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah.
He seems very healthy these days.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's that James Franco you have to worry about. I mean, really. Yeah. Well, loves to dabble. Yeah.
All right, so a couple of quick fire questions before I let you go.
Yeah.
First, best, last, worst. First acting job that made you think, I've made it, even if it wasn't true.
I've made it. Oh, man. Oh, God. I don't know. This is very hard. I don't know. In a way, it's American Horror Story.
Oh, nice.
In a way.
Best story you have from Billy on the Street?
So many. But I did get to do a segment with Michelle Obama. And
that was amazing. I kind of felt bad for Big Bird. He seemed a little outgunned in that segment.
Well, it's Michelle Obama and me.
And
Take
Elena.
a seat, Big Bird, and Elena. Elena's like a contestant that's on my show a lot, a real, not a celebrity, a real person. Yeah, no, but Big Bird was fine. He got his own On the Street segment after. And I think Big Bird's going to be just fine. Yeah.
Last time you were recognized in public?
Oh, I can't leave my house. It really, it's become such a burden. I'm kidding. Last time I was recognized, I don't know, like walking around. I think I live in either New York or LA, and I have a feeling a big part of my following is in New York and LA. And so people recognize me, but I think they feel like they know me. I certainly It's not like I'm, Leonardo DiCaprio and I have to walk around, with a baseball cap on. I live my life and I'm fine.
Oh, nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like a lot of your persona is kind of the I want to be famous, which is your alternate, your Stephen Colbert ego.
Correct, yeah.
But do you see a downside to the growing fame that you have?
I have a very manageable, lovely level of success. I would say that the little, the bits and pieces I've gotten through the years of people recognizing you maybe at awkward moments, that's led me to understand that if you are DiCaprio or someone at that level who really is incredibly recognizable all over the world and maybe feels they have to sneak around to a certain degree. I don't know, maybe he doesn't. I'm just assuming. I'm just using it as an example. I would imagine that fucking sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
That's just not a natural way to be. I'm not on that level, and I don't know if I'd even want to be. I don't know how much fun that is at the end of the day. I mean, I'm sure he has a ton of fun. I'm sure it's great, on some level, pros and cons to everything. But, people up in your shit all the time. I want to be able to, go to CVS and walk around and, buy lube and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Without it being a big deal.
Worst audition experience?
Worst audition experience. This is a long time ago. I went on audition for a commercial. This is years ago. And when I got there, I realized that everyone else there was a full-on model. And I didn't know, maybe because I'm tall, my manager was like, just go, But I was like, no, I don't look like these. They're full, the women were taller than me and beautiful. The men were tall and beautiful. But it was also for a Kentucky Fried Chicken fast food chain. And so when you went into the audition room, they had me surrounded by two beautiful female models, gorgeous, from Russia or something. You know how they ship those in. And so, and they had us reenact this scene, and they gave us this to use as the chicken leg or something. It wasn't a real chicken leg, so they just gave us this wrapped up bit of tin foil. And they were here, act like this is the chicken leg. And I said, okay, and I was very young at this point, right after college or something. I hadn't auditioned very much. And I'm sitting next to these models, and they're like, Billy, you start. So I was like, all right, I'm supposed to act like this is the chicken leg. I guess I'll bite into it. But it's tinfoil. So I just took a bite out of it, thinking that's what I was supposed to do, and I bit into this foil thing. And it was not fun. And then, then I look over to one of the models, I shouldn't have done that. And she's literally just no reaction. I don't know if they spoke English or what. And I felt so embarrassed. And I could just feel the casting directors look at me why would you do that? And I didn't know why. And it was terrible. Mm-hmm.
All right, well, before I let you go, can you give me 3 predictions for Emmy night? What do you think's going to happen? It doesn't have to be wins. It can just be things that go down at the Emmys.
Oh, it's hard to predict what's going to go down. I would imagine there will be some politics talked about. I hope so. Mm-hmm. I think it's so boring not to. And I miss those days of Susan Sarandon and Tim Robbins at the Oscars just screaming about whatever they were screaming about, the death penalty. We never talk about the death penalty anymore. I hope that Allison Janney just talks about the death penalty for a half hour. That would be good. And what else? I think Colbert, I'm predicting a musical Colbert moment of some sort, I could be wrong. 3 predictions, you said?
Yeah.
That's it? I predict a physical altercation between me and Tracy Ullman. She's nominated in my category, and I think it's going to be bloody. I really, really do. Yep.
Billy Eichner, thank you so much.
You think Tracy Ullman knows who I am? I don't. I think during the category they're gonna read the nominee. She's gonna be Billy on the street. She's gonna be like, what?
Well, we'll look out for that reaction.
Okay. Yes.
Billy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
We will see you September 17th on Emmy night.
Yes, you will, sitting in the audience.